Hello guys, I know it's been a while, but I've had other things to do more important than all these videos, like all these tournaments I'm traveling to. But I decided to make a video just for you guys, really special one. I'm making a supergun for an arcade board that my friend has just recently got, called SuperTurbo. So you may be asking, what's so special about this supergun? Well, I'm going to be putting inside of a PS2 system. Alright, the main components of the supergun, and pretty much only components, is a video converter, a power supply, and PS2 controller converter, and a JAMA harness. Oh yeah, I also need the PS2. Oops. Oh yeah, you also need a video game.
From the JAMA end.
First thing I'm going to do is Dremel this motherboard for the PS2, because I don't need all of this stuff. All I really want is the USB jack for future use and the jack for the AV. All the rest of the stuff can go, so I'm just going to dribble off there, around there, and this whole board's going to go, so that way I have room to fit the computer power supply. For science. Here are this nub. See this nub right here? See? That's more room. More room to put stuff here and things and objects. We're going to want to reuse the fan that came with the PS2. Only problem is it runs off 7 volts, whereas we're only getting 5 volts and 12 volts from the power supply unit. So what we're going to do is reuse a voltage regulator chip that's on the PS2 to take the 12 volts and regulate it down to 8 volts, which will be enough to run the fan without having it blow up. Although that sounds kind of cool if it blows up. This is the 7808 voltage regulator chip. I'm just going to basically cut around this area so that way I don't have to desolder and make up a whole new circuit board for it. Here's the finished voltage regulator. See how it has the ground and 12 volts hooked up to it? And I did some little wiring to the pin connector for the 8 volts in ground. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it on the PCB here and glue it there in place. I also replaced the AC plug with this type of pin connector so that way it matches the original PS2. This came off of the PS2's power supply. We're talking about the drive now, what we did with that. I basically took all the shit out of it. I just have the base frame and I put the video converter inside of it. I also had to cut the metal frame so that the power supply would fit, much like I had to cut the original PS2 motherboard and leave with the hard drive bay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the JAMA harness inside of the bay so that it's not having to hang out of the system when not in use. I'm going to need to drill a hole in the back area of the hard drive bay, so that way the harness, when it's inside, have a way to have all the wires actually go throughout the whole system. And sparks will fly. Starting to come together now. Right here is where the hard drive bay is, and you see the JAMA harness is coming out of it, and comes out through over here. And and this is all the wiring to do for the system. I mounted the power supply unit down to the base. Over here is the AV jack, and on top of that will be the AC socket and fan, and the video converter, which is in this drive, will sit on top of that. So let's get to the wiring. Right here now we have the RGB video signal from the arcade going to the converter. We also have power going to the converter, and I have the composite video wired up to the AV jack along with the audio. Also the 5 volt, 12 volt, and ground from the power supply unit is wired up to the JAMA harness. And pretty much all that's left now is to wire up the PS2 controller port to the converter, which wires up to the inputs for the JAMA harness.
Look at it, it's beautiful. It's all done. I'm about to close it up in a minute. We'll just point out some areas of interest. Over here is the video converter. Turns RGB video into composite and S video. I mapped the reset button as a test button and the eject button as a service button. Over here is the PS2 controller ports. So it converts the PS2 controller signals into individual buttons presses. In the future, when a USB decoder is made, I will be wiring up this USB port so you can either use a USB controller or a PS2 controller. In the middle here is the computer power supply unit I used. What's cool about it is that the switch here will actually convert it if you're using 240 volts. So if you'd be like in the UK, you'd want to hit the switch because you'd be using a higher voltage. And on the video converter, there's a switch to switch it to PAL video. So this would actually work in the United States and in the UK. And back here is the fan and AV port and the power switch. And I'll rotate it where the hard drive port is, the JAMA harness and kick harness for the CPS2 system will be coming out. So when it's not in use, you just stuff it back in.
back to
Alright, done. Can I play now?
No.
Can I play? Oh, thanks, Mark.
You got straddled before you